Have you ever went to play your old Nintendo and this happens?
You put the cartridge in, hit the power button, and a white screen and flickering power light. You try the old blow the cartridge routine. Nothing. You try the Q-tip with cleaner method. Nothing. You even try to make deals with it.
If you play just this one game, I promise you'll be the only console I ever play. I promise.
Nothing.
Why do you hate me? Before you throw your Nintendo in the trash, here's a little something you can try. Okay, so yeah, it's not all over if you're having trouble getting your Nintendo to work. This is actually a common problem. This happens over time. This original model Nintendo is known to be, a little finicky. That, everyone knows about the cartridge blowing, or some people talk about having to jam things, under or no above the cartridge itself, really press it in there to make it even work. Weird stuff like that. Well, none of that's necessary, because obviously the contact points which read your cartridges are made of copper. Now just think of the Statue of Liberty for 1 minute. Over time that stuff will get dirty and corrode and so forth. So alright, we're going to need to open this up to do this, and I'm just going to stop right here for a second and give a little shout out, a little thank you to YouTuber Luke Morse 1. This is where I learned to do this in the first place, and I'm going to leave a link to that video in the description. But let's go. Oh yes, you're going to have 6 Phillips head screws in here. Thank goodness they didn't put those, specialty screws. So yeah, just a regular Phillips screwdriver will do. And come on. Yeah. If you don't, if you're opening it for the first time, you're really sometimes gonna have to fight to get these back out. There we go. Not too much. There it is. And we're gonna get the rest out and be right back. Okay, so we're back. After you have removed those screws, the top should just come right off. And then you have this RF shielding, as you can see. And this is a big part of the reason why a Nintendo seems to be built like a tank and weighs quite a bit, is this big puppy. And you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 screws to remove. Once again, Phillips head. I like simplicity. Make it easy on us all. We're going to remove those, and I'm not going to make you watch me remove 10 screws, so we'll be right back. Alright, now that you've done all that, you should just pop that right off. And you'll have 2 more screws in the front corners, and you're just going to want to... Actually, there's also 2 back here, almost forgot. Well, basically, once again, remove. And once again, gonna do a nice little fade in, fade out. Okay, so now those screws are out. You should be able to take the loading tray off. There we go. Loading tray. Put that aside. And you can see really how simple the motherboard is. I want to disconnect the connectors for the controllers and stuff. There we go. Alright, yeah, take the RF shielding off. And there it is. And this little black piece right here, that's what reads your games. It's a 72, I believe, 72 pin connector. And you know, this right here goes to the motherboard of the system, and this right here takes your cartridges. And this is also one of the biggest problems right here, is this little guy. But also the connections right here can also be problematic. So next step, we're going to clean these guys. Okay, next you're going to want to clean out that 72 pin connector. And what I like to do is use a little piece of sandpaper. Make sure you get yourself some fine grit sandpaper. You don't want anything too rough and too thick, you know, too strong. You just tear the metal right up. So you want to make a nice little key that'll fit right in there. And sometimes, you know, you get too thick, sometimes you get too thin. You just, you know, adjust it till you get it right. And basically all you're going to do is just get it in there and start running it over the pins as much as you can. Just a good, you know, several scrubbings. Yeah, just get that in there real good. And you're, you know, taking off any of that old corrosion that's ever built up. Okay, and then, you know, just repeat for the motherboard side as well. Okay, for this next step, I recommend getting something that'll catch, you know, a mess that you're about to make. You need to clean off these contact points on the motherboard that takes the, you know, takes the pin connector. And what I recommend using, just a moment, some steel wool. Now, you know, careful when using this stuff. You want to try to make a nice, you know, square that's not jaggedy, because I've stabbed myself in the fingers with this stuff. So yeah. Now what's good about this is you'll clean this up without taking too much off the surface, and you won't really scratch it up that bad. It'll give it a nice shine and everything. So you just start going over them. Let me see if I can show you just how well it cleans it. Yeah, I can already see a difference. Yeah, it catches all in that plastic bag right there. Now, I don't know if you can see it or not, but that's actually very shiny. Let me see if I... Yeah, you see that? Not the RF box, but yeah, looks good. And then just rinse, repeat on the other side. Now, another step that I like to do after you've, you know, gone over it with your steel wool is to get just a rag and some Windex or any kind of window spray you have. You know, spray it on there real good, get a nice damp spot, and you want to go over the contact points. That way, you know, it just gives it some more cleaning. You know, the Windex will really get in there and cut through, you know, some of the corrosion and so forth. That'll also just get off some of the flakes you left behind that you can't see or notice. Like, you know, that's dirty now, as you can see. And then you take the dry side and just, you know, really go over it. You know, give it a good, get a good grip on it, and just go over it several times, and you'll buff out. If you did leave any scratches on there, you'll buff them right out. And it just puts this nice, smooth, and shiny finish to it. And yep.
Now, another reason why you're having trouble playing your Nintendo games, of course, and probably the most common, would be a dirty cartridge. And like I mentioned before, sometimes the Q-tip method with cleaner doesn't work, and sometimes, of course, blowing the cartridge doesn't work. So what I recommend is deep cleaning it. Now you're going to need to get it open, and most cartridges that's not too easy. It is now though. Now with a good old eBay, just look for Nintendo security bit screwdriver. There are two different sizes. You know, you want the smaller ones for these cartridges, Super Nintendo as well. But for the Super Nintendo console, you need a bigger one, but that's another thing. So after you get your tool, just remove all 3 screws and you'll have it open. And I'll be back in a second. Yeah. Okay, now after you've removed all 3 screws, cartridge should just open right up. I recommend, of course, taking the back side off because it's the front side that holds the chip itself. And just pull the board right out. Now for a good deep cleaning, for the most part, all you're going to need is just an old, rag, hand towel, and some Windex. This one actually is already in pretty good shape, but what the heck. Let's go ahead and demonstrate that real quick. I say for the most part, this is all you're going to need because sometimes you'll have a cartridge that is pretty rough. If it's got some corrosion buildup, it's kind of foggy or green, and this just isn't cutting through. It'd be easier to take the steel wool to it, like I showed you earlier with the motherboard. But if you get one that's so bad, like this one time I cleaned a couple of cartridges for a friend, and I'm guessing they left it in a moist area or something like that. There's these big, just green chunks of fuzzy corrosion. It was just really thick. If it's that bad, I tried the towel, I tried the steel wool, it was not working at all. It just wasn't doing anything. What you're going to want to do is take that fine grit sandpaper, like I showed you earlier, and that will remove that corrosion. And it worked for my friend as well. When I got done, it did take off that golden layer, and it kind of looked like, copper, but it didn't hurt anything, and the games are working like brand new. So only if it's that bad, if you got big old thick fuzzy chunks of corrosion, do I recommend doing that. If it's not that bad, use steel wool, but if it's just a little dirty, Windex and a rag. And this one's already pretty clean anyways, but that should do it.
Alright. This has to work.